Hello, you're listening to the Lamptey Show. My name is Joey. This week I am joined by Dom.
Hello there.
Hi, Dom. And by Imogen.
Hi.
And the long-awaited return of Laurie, Patrick, the lonely season. Woo!
Cheers, mate. How you doing?
I'm very well. When was the last time we had you
on? Probably Ipswich away. That would be a guess.
Really?
The famous Ipswich away. A long time.
I'll tell you when it was. Too long, baby. That's when it was.
It's just probably the institutional workplace bullying that goes on behind the scenes that the Lamptey Show has just kept me.
Yeah.
You kind of hiding pheasants under my desk. And
absolutely.
Funny jokes like that.
I don't think it's... I mean, whilst it might take place behind the scenes, I should imagine that nobody's terribly surprised about the sort of bicycle baiting that we've been doing for the last few years. I'm going to throw to you then, Laurie, to really show yourself up early doors. What's your moment of the week?
Moment of the week. Good things happened this week. Bumped into the Wolf again at Bristol City. But probably... the Wolf being just this kind of jokes character who I met at Cov, who is called the Wolf, apparently. He's just a good lad. And he was wearing exactly the same clothes as I saw him at like 2 years ago, as was I think. But, like, almost nothing has changed, so it's quite depressing. But I think probably getting my Bournemouth ticket and not really realising that I'd kind of got Willy Wonka's golden ticket / Glastonbury ticket / final unicorn in the universe. And it was unbelievably easy.
I missed all this. But Paul alluded to it on WhatsApp, didn't he? But talk me through what's happened.
So basically, you opened your computer, you pressed the button that said, give me a ticket, and it gave you one. But a lot of people seem to have a lot of trouble getting their ticket. So I think I just got super lucky.
Had their butlers not logged on as early as yours?
Yeah, I don't know. But I'm not even from Coventry. Don't even really have much interest in the team. I just fancied it out in Bournemouth, and what do you know? I've got a ticket. It's great.
It's just nice. Yeah, good. Right, Imogen, your moment of the week.
It's not Cov related, but
brilliant.
It would, yeah. But it was Josh Cavallo coming out a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, that was.
There's a lot of darkness in football at the moment. For every Marcus Rashford, there is a Cristiano Ronaldo. And I saw a survey the other day that said that there's been an increase in female fans being harassed at games. I think they said that 1 in 5 had reported unwanted physical attention, which is surprisingly low. So, yeah, Cavallo's statement just is a bit of a chink of light. And I saw today that Amal Fashanu, who is Justin Fashanu's niece, had said that his foundation had been counselling 2 Premier League footballers who are gay, and one of whom potentially will come out next year. And I think it's brilliant. I really hope that we get to a stage where this isn't even something that we talk about and becomes commonplace, and that it just isn't an issue, isn't interesting. So yeah, I think it is a positive.
The main thing for me was the fact that I think maybe a week later or so is he followed it up by saying that he really wished, now knowing what the reaction had been, that he wished he'd have done it far sooner. Because I think the worry with it is that there was going to be a load of dickheads being dickheads. But I think largely it's been overwhelmingly... do you know what? I don't even want to say positive, but met with kind of people going, okay, which I guess is what you want, really, isn't it? I guess, do you know what I mean? Is you want to make sure that there's not this sort of like absolute dickhead tsunami, but I don't think there has been particularly. The question then is about whether that same thing happens with a higher profile player, but we shall wait and see, hopefully. Yeah. But agreed. And Dom, yours to round things off.
Yeah, so after that rather noble moment of the week, I'm going to be a little bit more self-centered, and I put out a tweet on Wednesday, I think, where I was sort of trying to think of article inspiration for the international break. So I had a list of articles I wanted to do. One was sort of just like what ifs, and there was a few of them I had, but I I realised a lot of them were just very recent ones, which would only be interesting if you sort of read foreign commentary intently and sort of were a younger fan. So, but I was expecting about 10 or 12 people to get back in response, and there was absolutely tons. There was like 90 of them, which was insane. So I'm just going to put my favourite one out, which like highlighted a section of commentary history that no one really talks about. So in response to the what if, and this was on the Sky Blues Talk forum by a poster called Cov. So his what if was what if World War II never happened? So obviously, you know, it kind of sounds like they're taking a few liberties with it, but it does really highlight quite an interesting and underlooked section of Country City's history. So just to quote them basically verbatim. So Harry Storer had taken over as manager in 1931, and apparently he is the person that Brian Clough names as inspiration. Citation there. We finished second, third, and first in the third tier, then 8th, 4th, and 4th in the second tier. So clear sort of trend. Also, another aspect was it when we took over, we were getting less than 10k crowns per game, and then in 1939 we were getting about 26,000, which put us about the 8th supported team in the country, which was higher than at the time than like clubs like Leeds, Birmingham, Leicester. So so it was something that I was completely unaware of, sort of commentary's history in the 1930s, and maybe things would be very different if Austrian kid didn't fail art school.
I thought that's what you were going to say. I thought you were going to say the start of the 1939-40 season, a young Austrian left-back is released by the club.
I misheard that. It kind of cut out for me a second. So I thought you'd said, what if 4-4-2 had never happened? I was just like,
yeah, I thought that.
Is this manager going to invent 4-4-2 formation at some point? What are you talking about? What happened in 1938? I can't think of anything.
So there we go. Well, look, I'm going to. I've been accused of being a football hipster quite a lot recently, so I'm going to go for the wild and wacky moment of the week of a last-minute winner with 10 men at home, which amazingly, with 3 previous guesses, that didn't come up. Right, okay, let's get into the games because we've got a lot of them. So, Imogen, Hull, talk to me.
Yes, the win that wasn't a win.
Yeah.
We were facing them, I'm reliably informed, it was their worst start since 1989. Grant McCann is a very unpopular man in Hull. No one likes him. So it felt like an inevitability that we were going to win, and win we did, according to most of us. We had not won in the previous 3, but we arrived with an unchanged team, many fans. And there wasn't, I'll be honest, I didn't know much about Hull, but Tom Eaves was there. Tom Eaves is everywhere. I feel like we can't escape this man. He follows us around. I didn't really notice him much in the game, but he had his bun. It was there. Paul seemed very impressed by Keane Lewis Potter. I'm going to be honest, I didn't notice him because I only watch our own Brave Boys, but apparently he was quite good. But to be honest, there wasn't really much else to say about them. I mean, I think we won a free kick within the first 2 minutes, and then we carried on from there. We scored pretty early on. The goal was quite nicely worked. Maatsen played a ball down the left flank to Big Vic, cut inside, and he was tackled, ball fell to Maatsen, and Godden was there, unmarked, with an arcing cross from Maatsen, and he headed it in. That is really all I can tell you about the game. It was such a dull spectacle. It never felt like they were going to score, but equally, even when the goal went in, no one we celebrated, but it did feel a little bit like a delayed reaction, like we hadn't really got into the game yet, and it felt quite stop-start. But I think, first half we were pretty in control. Gyökeres had a couple of chances, and I thought actually that O'Hare, Gyökeres and Godden linked up pretty well. They seem to be creating some good chances. Less impressive in the middle of the park. Harmer and Sheaf did not have great games. Again, their concentration levels weren't great. And even when they weren't put under pressure, they were misplacing a lot of passes, which I think we've seen in subsequent games, and it's becoming a bit of a pattern, which I don't much like. So if they could stop, that would be great. We had a succession of, I think it must have been about 4 corners towards the end of the first half. So we were looking impressive in terms of our attacking capabilities. But again, it was the final ball that wasn't really running for us. And then I think, second half, we kind of continued that vibe, but we got to about 60 minutes and I got distracted by, I think it was a hawk, but it could have been a kestrel. It killed a pigeon mid-flight.
Mid-flight?
It flew around the bowl of the stadium and then it landed on a floodlight and proceeded to eat the pigeon. And I was entranced. I lost a good 10 minutes of the game. So I couldn't tell you what happened.
Live lynching.
Yeah. I was quite concerned about the supporters underneath the pigeon.
How mid-flight?
Yeah, Joey, as I've said, mid-flight.
Yeah, I know, but I can't even picture how that plays out.
Can you make the noise or something? Yeah, do an impression.
Well, I don't think it's the noise.
I couldn't do it justice.
But like, does the big bird use its beak to sort of like spear the other one, or what? Or did it have a gun?
Not the beak, the talons.
Right.
From
okay.
above.
I knew you would.
There we go.
It's classic raptor behaviour, that. So
okay,
that happened, and when I look back, we brought on Alan for Godden, which I don't know if anyone else has felt this recently, that Robbins' subs have been surprising in who he's chosen to bring off. I wouldn't have taken off Godden in that game. Although I don't know, he might have had an absolute horror show in those last 10 minutes and I just wasn't watching. But I thought O'Hare was...
Maybe he thought he was at risk from the kestrel.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, it's entirely possible that Alan appeared on the pitch because it was dropped by the kestrel in order to pick up the pigeon. What did you describe it as? Interesting. Is that charitable?
Yeah, well, yeah. What did you think about it, Joey?
The game or the substitutions in general?
The substitution.
I think recently there has been questions over some of the substitutions, generally speaking, I would say, that I think could probably very legitimately be explained away. And I think none more apparent than bringing Kelly on for Harmer on Saturday, which looked on the face of it to be a move towards making sure that we didn't lose, when in fact actually Harmer had got a hamstring pull or something like that, or had got cramp or something, so he took him off as a precaution, and then Kelly did push up high on the pitch. And so there's a level to which you've got to be careful with being too critical about the substitutions, because you can bring what you expect them
especially
to be.
On Twitter, Joe.
Well, yeah,
like
exactly, yeah. I've only literally just come out of jail today, so yeah. So I think there's a level to which you have to be you tread carefully about criticising them, because I think you bring a lot of what you think they are to them, whereas they might have much more reasonable explanations. But I think and again, another thing that people aren't happy about being talked about, I think a number of people would have thought it prudent to bring off O'Hare at different stages of each of those 3 games, or sort of parts of those 3 games, but he seems to be irreplaceable on the pitch, and I think that's interesting. And just generally speaking. However, there has been some really good substitutions. I thought that Todd Kane, which I know seemed like a forced substitution, but that keeping him on the right, moving Dabo to the left, I thought was fantastic against Bristol City. But yeah, I think as we get through the rest of the games, and there might be some more specific focus on the substitutions, I think, yeah, is that some of them have raised an eyebrow or two. Generally speaking on Hull, because I think it's good that this was the furthest game away, because I don't think anybody wants to spend a lot of time talking about it. The general consensus seemed to be that it's a game that doesn't bear analysis because we won. But I would say that, especially in the first half, the Hull defence looked like when the pass-back rule got put in place in the early 90s or whatever it was. And just every time that the defender got on the ball for Hull, they just looked like they'd never played the game ever before. And I really rubbed my hands together thinking, these guys are absolute clowns. Like, this is an absolute cakewalk. We just need to press them high, and they're just going to either boot the ball out into touch and we're on the attack with the ball, or we're just going to create mistakes. And I was disappointed that we just didn't really try and exploit it, to the point where they nearly came back into it by the end of it. I just thought... They were the worst team I remember seeing us play since that game at home in League Two against Grimsby, where we won 4-0, and you're sort of like, we were good, but I do feel sorry for them, because that's not, you just think that's not, you don't, what are you doing, guys? I thought
none of them could muster any energy to even look annoyed or to fight back. They were just devoid of any energy. And yeah, they weren't very good, but I didn't ever feel they were never going to score, and I felt like we were sort of conserving our energy for the next few games. I don't know. I know what you're saying, and it could have been around.
Bullying their team as well.
Sorry, say again.
Didn't their fans start kind of bullying their team and manager during the game? Because I love being there for that.
Yeah, they wanted the manager out very vocally, but they never really got on the team's back, I didn't think.
They were so ready to go at the manager, weren't they?
Yeah.
As soon as they conceded, the ball hadn't even hit the net, and they were absolutely just right on it. You just felt like they were all on the walk-up. They were like, I really hope we get to concede early so that we can dig straight into him, because they didn't miss a beat when they conceded. Yeah, they were, and that was part of it as well. Is it just seemed like such a toxic atmosphere that you thought, oh, we could really have these on toast today. If we really fancied it, we could absolutely pummel them. But I was just a touch disappointed that we didn't seem to want to. It just seemed needlessly conservative for me. But like you say, Imogen, this is the thing, is that I think Robin said after the game that it was important to get a clean sheet, and it was, because we hadn't had one, and it was an away win that we hadn't had, and there was lots of different things that were important about making sure that we just saw it out. I just don't think, for me, is that sometimes the best way to not lose a game is to win it comfortably, but the less said about the semantics of what a win is and isn't, probably the better, especially when it comes to me. Anything else that you wanted to add on Hull before we move on to Swansea?
Absolutely not.
That sounds good. Dom, Swansea.
Yeah, so I suppose for anyone who has been following the Championship this season, Swansea under Russell Martin already become pretty famous for just absolutely hoarding possession, and straight from kick-off of that game, it was quite clear what kind of game it was going to be. Just some really, really long spells on the ball. And you could almost feel some of the players thinking this is going to be a long night. They did some quite interesting things, especially the way they seemed to just switch between 3 and 4 at the back quite fluidly. Their left centre-back often went into left-back positions, and that's what really led to the first goal, where manning that left centre-back helped create an overload down the left. It really pinned us back. Cross came in from Bidwell, and it was a situation where we had, I was looking at it still of it, we had 8 of our own players in the box, but no one seemed to be taking charge of it at all. No one seemed to be in the right position for the cross. No one seemed to be trying to attack the ball, and it just looked so shoddy. Jake Mark-Salter will probably gets a lot of the blame for that goal just because it's a fairly weak clearance for him, but he's in such a slightly awkward position to really sort of try and get a foot through it. And it then falls for Patterson, who scores. Few question marks with Siren Moore. It's one of those where it's in the category of that is not a terrible piece of goalkeeping, but you wonder whether a truly great goalkeeper might have been able to save a shot that was relatively low and close to his body. But Moore has been pretty good this season, so you can kind of forgive him for not being super excellent. And yeah, it just felt a goal all round where it just seemed to reflect that become a little bit hesitant recently, and that lack of decisiveness, and we were punished. And if there's a team that you don't want to concede basically their first shot of the game to, it's Swansea, who are going to keep 78% of the ball, and that continued to be a theme of the first half. And they're really working these overloads really well, stretching us out wide. That also created the opportunity for their attacking midfielders, Patterson and Livery and Cham, to just get into these kind of deep pockets of space and drive forward and create even more uncertainty. It really, really looked like it was going to be a complete massacre, especially when a second goal comes in from a break from a corner. But it was one of the key themes of the game that they were continually getting their right wing back, Ethan Laird, down that side of the pitch behind Maatson and Clark-Salter. There were it probably was offside, the second goal in that move, if you really watch it. A lot of people around me were absolutely certain that it was offside. I suppose replays do actually prove that to be the case. I thought you can kind of see from the replay why the assistant didn't quite see it. I think it's actually quite a bit closer than was being given credit for. But even then, Laird gets into the penalty area and there's players back, but no one's taking charge again, and the ball falls to Perot. It's a great finish, but another goal which just felt kind of sloddy and slapdash from our point of view. Just almost felt like it was a cup tie between teams in two different divisions, and we were just being outclassed by a team doing a lot of things that we simply weren't capable of or capable of reacting to. Then we get a goal back just for half time from a set piece, but it didn't really change the narrative of the game at all. The second half was better in some respects from our perspective, where we had more of the ball, we got into more dangerous areas more often, but there were two big issues which really prevented us from putting the final result under any kind of threat. One was that quite a few of our attacking players looked to be really short of confidence. That probably was most obvious in O'Hare and Jokeres and Dabo. Just a real hesitancy in our play in the final third, where there are a few decent opportunities to break and we just kind of stumbled over them and allowed them to pass us by. And also, it did feel that Swansea were just holding us at arm's length. They were quite comfortable with us working the ball out wide, as we did quite a lot, and they were fairly set defensively, and some decent bits of game management, the usual, on top of just keeping the ball really well. I say the only sort of ray of light from that game was just Annan and Hamer in midfield. I think that probably looks our best partnership. I know Sheaf did really well in the second half against Bristol City alongside Hamer. I just think Annan and Hamer is just quite a complementary partnership, where you have Hamer, who's really good in possession and can drop deep and pick his passes, and Annan, who can push forward, get in the faces of opponents, and it just makes for a much nicer balance, in my opinion. But aside from that, that is the Swansea game, a pretty comprehensive 2-1 defeat.
Did you think at any point in the second half, despite all of our kind of possession, that we were going to get back into it at all?
It never really felt like it. It was a slow death kind of narrow defeat where, maybe if we'd had players in better form, that might have turned things around a little bit. But it just didn't feel like it. It was a combination of Swansea sucking the life out of the game and ourselves just being devoid of life.
Before we move on to Bristol, I'm conscious, Dom, that I wanted to ask you about Gyökeres over the last sort of, 5 or 6 games, or however it's been since his last goal. I think it's 5 games now, isn't it? He's another one that's got some context because of the knock on his leg and things. But what have you made for his performances over the last 5 games?
Yeah, I think for the most part he's just tired. And I think if Mark Robbins could have this last section of 5 or 6 games since the Blackburn game back, maybe he would have rested Gyökeres for 1 or 2 of those. Because there's been moments, against Bristol City, I felt he was actually quite important to the comeback, and against Swansea as well, he was starting to get in behind the centre backs in the same way he was getting in those brilliant performances early on. And I just wonder whether he's just lost a little bit of that explosiveness just from being tired. So hopefully over this international break he can get some of it back, and maybe it's the case for Mark Robbins trying to manage his minutes a little bit better. It means it's been quite a big theme this season that Gyökeres has rarely lasted 90 minutes. So it does seem that fitness level seems to be a bit of an issue for him. Although the one thing with resting Gyökeres is there isn't another similar player who can just offer that presence in the final third and a bit of link play. So it makes it very difficult for Mark Robbins to rest him. But it feels like something that's going to need to happen over the course of a long and hard 46-game season.
Imogen, question for you on Gyökeres. Well, sort of on Gyökeres. Do you think we miss Waghorn?
I think we miss him as an option from the bench. I'm still not convinced that his industry amounts to much. I like him linking up with Gyökeres, but I think, especially in the Bristol game, which I'm sure Laurie will talk more about, I thought he and Godden worked pretty well together. So it's nice to have him as an option, but he wouldn't be my first choice.
Laurie, pick it up from there. So, Gyökeres, Jordan-Rez. Can we get a portmanteau name? Can we put these two guys together finally?
What have we ever had more poorly pronounced players than we have at the moment? So I'm going to probably go for the 4th pronunciation of ham or Imogen and Dom have both gone for different varieties. Gyökeres, Big Vic, whatever.
Let's call the whole thing off.
Yeah, it's hard to pronounce all these names. But Bristol City, I've actually just been, obviously I'm quite closely connected with that club compared to other Championship clubs because loads of my friends are Bristol City fans. Apparently, they're kind of a club semi in freefall, having been so well sorted for so many years with like the amazing stadium, promotions, almost going up to the Prem. Now, Nigel Pearson's apparently had COVID, but what I heard today is a voice note that's going around the Bristol City forums that Nigel Pearson is an alcoholic and he's been on the lash in Nailsea, which is a small village outside of Bristol, for the last 7 days, absolutely tearing it up. And they tried to put him on gardening leave and he wouldn't go, and now he's going to come out with an alcoholism problem and he's demanded that the club support him through it. So watch this space on Nigel Pearson. But Bristol City kind of played like a team who were in need of a drink, to be honest, because they weren't very good.
Just a quick reminder that alcoholism not that much of a laughing matter, I would say, but even more crass than that is the kind of the quest level linking.
Okay, if you're a City fan, you would definitely need a drink to watch them, because they were so mad. Like, we weren't having a particularly good game, but we had everything under control, keeping the ball, moving it nicely. Hamer was playing better than I was expecting him to. Had a really nice shot early on, munched someone. And yeah, we were like sufficient. We kind of let them back into it on about 25 minutes. They started moving it around a bit better. But the half was like thoroughly forgettable. We had the upper hand, but I brought 2 people with me to watch it, and one of them left with 5 minutes to go and get a pint, and then it absolutely set on fire with this really nice diagonal pass from City. I got told off on Sky Blues Talk for calling it like an absolute double penalty, and Matsson's holding the guy's hand, and obviously, unlike Gyökeres, if you're having your hand held in the box, you hit the deck. That's what you do. And he did. And I just think on no planet is that not a penalty.
Just don't touch him.
Just don't touch him.
Yeah, I've seen a load of replays of it, and I think it's inconclusive. But what you can see is
because the cameraman's slow, he kind of misses it.
But he moves towards him, doesn't he? You just think,
yeah.
But the only thing is that you think you're 19. This is probably the sort of thing that happens when you're 19, and you're like, yeah, right, okay, so I just can't do that at all, can I? You're like, yeah.
But what's sad about it is that he looks distraught, and all of his teammates, everyone walks away from him. No one complains. Everyone walks away from him as if like he's got like the penalty disease, and they want to keep as far away from him as possible. Like, surely, like, McFadzean should go up to him and should be like, "Oh, you silly prick! Like, go on your way." But no one. He's just left there to kind of sob and kind of mope his way off. Robbins gives him a little like pat on the head, but yeah, they slot it away 1-0, and it just suddenly you're like, oh, is it going to be one of those games where it's just a red card penalty goal? It's just there is no bigger 10 seconds in football than that, is there? It's just completely on its head. And it's funny playing these teams in the Championship, because even when they kind of seem a bit middling like Brazil, they had an £8 million centre midfielder who like barely did anything. That guy with the big hair. That's £8 million of like 21-year-old French player.
It's a lot, isn't it?
It's fine. Yeah, it's just mind-boggling. And the other thing worth mentioning is that it should have been game over instantly. We hadn't made that sub yet before half time. And there's a bit of a mix-up between McFadzean and someone gets caught out on the edge of the box. And their pullback, if they score that then, it's 2-0 half-time, 10 men, it's game over. So that's worth mentioning. And that happens like a few more times. Our goal, I think it's a McFadzean through ball all the way down the channel. I can't quite see it on the replay, but it's lovely. Like right on the byline, Godden kind of pulls it through the defender, and then just he knows when to go down for penalty. So yeah, the ref happily gave that, slotted it away, almost got saved.
Really almost got saved, that penalty.
Yeah,
that's not a good penalty,
like,
is it?
Is he a penalty misser?
Godden?
Yeah.
No, Godden is McNulty-esque, isn't he? Where you look at it, you think, yeah, you'll probably score this, but that's not. That was by the grace of God that one went in, weren't it? Because the keeper had pretty much got the entire thing, hadn't he?
Well, my Bristol City fan mate seems to think that keeper's worth about like 15 million quid. He is quite an optimistic guy, but he's our best player by an absolute country mile. So, and then they take the lead again. That was the odd thing about the second half. We're down to 10 men, and we felt way more comfortable.
Yeah,
I felt like we moved it really nicely. We didn't seem to we were having like overloads and stuff. It's like, where's this extra? What are they doing with this extra man? Is he up someone else's shirt, just like hidden somewhere? Because they just kind of, that seemed to relax them almost, and they're like, okay, cool, we'll get to beating them at some point. And so you never really felt, and the atmosphere picked up, and it was like this huge just sense of adversity that like went through the ground, and Bristol City's fans were miserably rubbish. They just might as well not have bothered. It was so bad. Because everyone's bringing 2,500 fans now, and just a lot of them don't bother singing, and you're like, well, maybe I would prefer it if you brought 700 and you actually made some noise. But then they did take the lead again, and I kind of think Moore should just push the shot out for a corner, because it's like, it's low, it's hit okay, it's curling away from goal, and it's probably maybe hitting the post or missing. And I think he just has to guide that out for a corner, and instead he gets like big fat hands on it, straight to their man who pulls it back, and then Vyman slots it away. And I was like, okay, it's not brilliant. But again, as Dom says, he's had a good season, so I'm not going
to jump in. What's it? So I agree with you about Moore. The bigger problem for me is that when you watch it back, Vyman has to run past, I think it's Sheaf and McFadzean, who watch him. And this is a really big problem for us, I think, that if you think about the Luton game and pretty much every goal they scored, and against Swansea and the Vyman goal, we don't react to a second ball in the box. There's so many goals we've conceded in the last month or 6 weeks or so, where either a shot has been blocked or someone's hit the post or a save has been made, but the ball falls to a much better prepared, and it's kind of always, and I know that I'm always picking on McFadzean, I don't mean to in this sense, but I'm using him as a sort of scapegoat here. It's kind of someone stood 5 yards away from where the ball has dropped, just staring at where it is. Vyman's got all the time in the world there, but if you watch it back, like I say, McFadzean and Sheaf are just like, look at him go. you go on, mate. You got a good chance of this.
Yeah.
You just think, could we not follow him or track him or mark him or sort of make more of an attempt to clear the ball?
Than like following in a shot to your own keeper to clear it. You're like, that is so non-champagne, non-Hollywood football. I have no interest in that whatsoever. Obviously, if you're a striker, running in on it's mint, because that could be a goal. But they're professionals. They should really have learned by now that running back towards your own goal is quite important. So, yeah, they should pull their finger out a bit on that. But I'll just try and keep rattling through it. I thought O'Hare was really good against Bristol City, because there's obviously been a lot of noise made about him and like what he does do, what he doesn't do, why he's playing in this division, why he's playing for us. But I just thought he was just everywhere, and it's not particularly insightful, but he went and went and went. And what my mate said to me, he was just like, your players do not stop running. And it was just amazing. Just everyone was up for it so much. It was like having 10 men just like really just lit a fire under all of them. And O'Hare was like the epitome of that, just covered so much ground. It's a beautiful little moment where he does this like intricate bit of skill on the left-hand side and then like slots it through for Tyler Walker down the left-hand channel. And it was just like, I know it didn't lead to a goal, but just like it was very good to watch.
But so I would say after he scored, I thought he was great. I thought he really, really, and that was pretty much the first thing he did after he scored was that shimmy to get round, and then the ball was really good, wasn't it, to slide Walker in. And I just thought once he'd scored, and I know again this is sort of, self-imposed narrative again, but it did feel like he was really effective from that point on. You don't know how much that affects you, or whether it's too easy to sort of draw conclusions about a 30-minute spell in comparison to the rest of the season. But I agree. I don't think he was great all the way through the game, but once he scored, he then really sort of came alive, I thought.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm definitely guilty of that. When as soon as someone scored a goal, you're like, it colours your whole view of their performance. But I mean, to talk about the goal as well, it's a great goal. He's getting heavily pressured on the edge of the box, and he doesn't really hit it that hard, but it's perfect. And it very much felt like there was only kind of 6 minutes between their goal and our goal, and we just never really let the game get out of control. Like, we never really let their leads build up into kind of 10, 15, 20 minutes. We were always just pulling it back. And I don't know what that says about our mentality of the team, but it's just, they're just at it straight away. And it was good to see. And then the winning goal. Oh, wait. Yeah. Oh, my God. When Tyler Walker refuses to pass to O'Hare.
That's
when
crazy,
it's 2-2.
isn't it?
We've got this amazing 3-on-2. It's like perfect. You couldn't have designed it better. Tyler Walker's further enough across on the right-hand side that there's enough space that the defender has to go to Tyler Walker. So O'Hare is just in acres. Not that he would have finished it, but still. You want him to get
I mean,
it was.
Well, you can take the piss out of O'Hare, but it was basically a tap in on an open goal if he rolls it to O'Hare. I mean, it's so obvious what needs to happen, and he's just like, "Don't worry about this, guys. I have got this." Oh, God.
It's crazy. He hits it well, but it's like arching away from goal, and you're like, well, that's kind of a 7 out of 10 effort, but
it's just not the right option.
Shoot if no one else is there, but
if that had been Gyökeres in peak form, having scored 10 in a row, and like, do you know what I mean? You just think, no, you still have to pass that. There's just, you don't. I'm glad that you want to have that shot. The only thing I can think is that he just doesn't ever look up and see O'Hare. That's the only way that you can justify it, because if he had have really seen him, you couldn't have not passed him, could you?
Mate, O'Hare's almost in the way. Like, it's genuinely that bad. I don't think you can give him that get out of jail free card. But then the actual goal, luckily Tyler Walker's off the hook because he did score. But if you look at that goal, so Kelly's come on for Hamer, and he picked them playing these little triangles, and for like the previous 5-8 minutes, we'd kind of getting a bit scared of having the ball, where we'd kind of move it forward and then think, oh, should we be going for a winner? Or should we be just settling for this? Is a draw with 10 men good? And it's almost like Robin / the players couldn't decide. It would go back to the centre backs quite a bit. And in one of these moments, Kelly picks it up, and the Bristol City striker, who should be tracking him in total opposition to how we played, just doesn't really bother. He kind of ambles back, and he's like, oh, I suppose I'm pretty near him now, that'll do. And Kelly's close to the edge of the box and just plays this ball that's it's a good pass, it's a straight pass, because Godden's made a horizontal run. But Godden's finish, the angle from behind the goal, he basically doesn't look at the goal. He has two defenders coming on his left, and he hits it inside both of them, or at least one of them. And so the keeper just doesn't really have a clue where the ball is. And it's just absolutely perfect into that far corner. And it's tops off the weird little bras they wear out. It's absolute. It's just one of those ones where you're like, I was not expecting that at all. It's that was off the script. There's no way we needed or were planning to do that. It was so, so good. So good.
The thing for me is, I think you can chart that all the way back to Caney, who I'm desperate to talk about.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good substitution, like you said. We've joked about him on here as being a sort of a very basic fullback and dump the ball into the back post and whatever. But actually, I think he starts it off by being composed enough to put his foot on the ball and not just hoof it into the box, and instead look for the inside pass. Then it's at that point in the game, for all of the players that were sort of involved in the build-up, and then it's the fact that Kelly just takes that extra split second before he plays it. It must be so hard to have the presence of mind in the 95th minute or whatever it is, or the 93rd minute, to think, with the crowd all desperate for the ball to be in the box, to just think, no, hang on a second, this just needs me just to slow it down ever so slightly. And then, like you say, for Godden to have the composure to just go, well, I know exactly where this is going to go, and to finish it so well. I just thought it was such an impressive goal, and it spoke so much to the... Yeah, I just thought it spoke so much to the character and the kind of the... I don't know, the players all round. It was a really good set of decisions made. It just felt like that injury time was played out really correctly. And I know it's easy to say that after you've scored that goal, but I think it
that goal only comes because, you know, they didn't panic. They just looked like a very confident, assured spell. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I was a little bit not annoyed, but it always takes the shine off it a bit when the guy I was watching with, the Bristol City fan, he was like, God, we are just total shit. Like, you deserve to win, but we're total shit. I was like, oh,
Well,
that was a very good goal. You're not total shit. That was a very good goal. He's like, no, we're miserable. Like, Pearson out. I was like, no. That's not how this goes. Like, we played well and we won. That's fair. You're not shit. You're fine.
I thought they were quite shit. I thought,
yeah, they are shit. But you just don't want them to say that at that moment.
Yeah.
You're trying to revel in you being really good.
Any other players that we'd like to pick out from that game, or possibly even from other games, who were sort of particularly worthy of attention, good or bad? Dom, anybody that you thought we haven't mentioned already, or someone that we have but not enough?
So I thought in that second half, the way Hamer and Sheaf just really took a hold of that midfield. Sheaf played a couple of absolutely gorgeous passes in that game. Actually, it was a game of some quite glorious big switches, I thought. Hamer was getting right in it in the first half, and he was let down on quite a few occasions by Dabo and Maatsen just having horrendous first touches. But he didn't deter him in the second half. There was one in the first half from Michael Rose, which was played from just outside the penalty area, like just to the right on his right foot, and it picked out Maatsen like midway through the opposition penalty area, and because it didn't lead to a goal, it was sort of a moment that passed by. But that's why you want Rose in the team, because he's got that in his locker, and it's a shame that we've sort of spent the past 2 seasons basically we haven't really seen that from him.
We haven't had it since we had Tom Davies, I believe.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. A defender with that incredible level of passing range.
So big switches are in
I
for
like that.
2021.
Indeed. Imogen, anyone that you sort of, wanted to pick out?
I mean, I don't think he had a vintage game, but I still think that McFadzean has really continued to improve this season, and I thought he was pretty solid at the back. And I agree, Michael Rose had a really good game as well. I thought they looked pretty solid together. But I agree with what Laurie said, which pains me, that when we had 10 men, we looked much more organised, and it was like all the pressure had just disappeared, and we just knew what we had to do, and we did it. So, maybe Maatsen does us a favour. I did also note that Chief managed 4 times in the first half to go for a ball that his teammate was going for, at one point nearly knocking McFadzean out. Now, I didn't think he had that bad a game, but some communication is probably necessary. It seemed like he was just getting in the way an awful lot in the first half.
I don't think he or McFadzean, and I'm going to link this back to something that we should have talked about already, which was the video of Godden and O'Hare that the club put out, which I guess everyone has seen.
No, I haven't seen it. What happened?
I haven't seen it.
Well, so there was it. So they were, to not mince words, they basically said that McFadzean was really thick. And you kind of think when footballers, and I don't mean to be rude to footballers, but when footballers are like, wow, this guy is thick, you just think that's all. I mean, it's already a low bar. That's so you know that, and I have half a sense that maybe Sheaf might not be far behind in that, but that it's unbelievable to me. Thinking about, I said before about Maatsen, about the kind of, when you're 19, you give away that penalty thing, you probably don't do it again. You would imagine that with Sheaf, is that he would think, I will probably not play a 5-yard square ball across the front of my own goal without looking. But instead, he does it every single week. You just think, maybe you're just not that bright. Maybe you haven't thought about it all that much.
Maybe in addition to moments of the week, could we not also have things that are annoying us that week?
Like the what's grinding your gears section.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've got an extremely good one in addition to like our players doing things that we don't like.
Okay.
Is this like people filming themselves watching football matches business?
Oh, God. Yeah, okay.
It is literally like a cancer in football social media. I don't get it. These people who hurriedly like switch on their phone to then like fake cry as their team concedes a goal, and then like the bemused people behind them just being like, what the hell is this person up to? And there's so many Cov fans doing it, just looking like, obviously celebrating goals is fun, but then they film themselves like inconsolable, having like conceded like an early goal. I just think, I think I'd have to move if I was sat next to someone doing that.
It's just a different generation of person, isn't it? I suppose is the thing. It's
No. Some of them are my age, Joey.
Yeah, but I'd consider you to be a different generation of person to me. In fact, I'd consider you to be a different person to me in every respect, hopefully.
Because you're a fossil and I'm a human.
Yeah, largely. Okay.
So you're not even going to go in on them a little bit? You think it's a good idea?
No, I mean, if I find it painful, but I also think that old people talking about how young people and social media is bad is probably the most kind of.
No, I think we're the first people to ever say something like that.
I guess everybody can enjoy their own lives the way that they want to, but we got by fine for ages with cameras without needing to be in front of them when we take the photos ourselves. But now apparently that's not good enough. Is that we have to be involved in everything that's there, but that this is not the kind of the old man's comfortable slippers podcast, is it? I suppose.
Everyone else is a coupon.
Everyone else is an absolute voucher. Yeah, you're quite right. Can we talk about Dabo for a second? Laurie, I'm going to ask you. I feel like Dabo, most of this season, has been A1, impeccable standard. But a little bit like Gyökeres, I feel like that's dropped off a little bit over the last few weeks. Am I being harsh, or are we seeing a bit of a drop off?
Well, because I haven't watched as much of many of our games this year, I'm still kind of comparing Dabo to the absolute like force of nature I saw when he first joined, and in that incredible season. So it's just interesting seeing him at this level where I think he's very competent and clearly has so much ability, but I don't think he's a very different player to the one who was just kind of almost like he was on cheat mode in League One, and now he's like has to play a little bit more contained and sensible because he realised he can't just skin people and like take the mick out of them the whole time. So I've only been to 3 live games this year, and he's normally playing out of position, and he's always been very involved in the game, but I think sometimes his crossing's been a bit leaves a bit to be desired, but that's maybe because he's on his wrong foot. So I'm probably not the best person to ask, but I think the other thing that we mentioned about Gyökeres, and I guess it counts for Dabo as well, I think they're probably just really tired as well, aren't they? Some of them. I think it does seem like this season above most is that there's been a lot of games in a very condensed space of time. And being a fullback like that, no one ever wanted to play fullback when you're a kid. It's absolutely exhausting.
Well, and even more so as the type of fullback or wingback that he is so energetic and so strong that it must just take it out of you. And it's, I think we want, generally speaking, a settled first 11, don't we? But then I guess you maybe have to accept then that players get tired, don't they? But I think it'd be really interesting when we come back from the international break to see how everyone's got on. Because you would hope that most of them would get a rest. On the subject of international breaks and Gyökeres, there seems to be an accepted wisdom that I'd like to challenge before we start looking at wrapping things up. That Gyökeres is going to somehow come back a better player for having gone on international duty with Ibrahimovic. Can we conclude that that's the biggest load of bollocks that's ever been espoused by journalists and football fans? surely there can be no impact on going away for a week with a good footballer on how good a footballer you are.
Well, how is it for you when you go on the podcast and you have a particularly insightful guest on the podcast?
Well, it's 10 years in and it hasn't happened yet, so I'll let you know when it happens. Am I being a misery ass here, or is that not
Well, it's
fair?
just one of those favourite things for journalists to write, isn't it? When they're just like, oh, Falcao's joined the club and now it's amazing seeing the runs he makes in training. You're like, I mean, surely that's got to be a bit true. It's just like having, I don't know, like a clever kid join your school and they just know more shit and then you learn some of the shit they know. Like, I don't know.
That's a
Do you?
That's a bad analogy, that is, yeah. That's a poor level analogy, that is.
How is that? That's exactly the same.
How are you learning from the clever kid?
Yeah.
They say stuff you don't know.
Are you stealing their homework?
Listen to what they say.
They're sat on a rock, you're sat cross-legged in front of them while they're holding court. You're making notes. Your Harry Potter school that you went to.
Well, Joey, maybe osmosis isn't a term you're familiar with, but like sometimes being around good people makes you like raise your level.
I don't know. I just don't think that's true. Not in this case, at least. I don't think that Gyökeres is going to go and spend a week with Ibrahimovic and be like, hang on a second, I see what he's done there. I think I'll do that.
Do you reckon he's going to get worse?
No, I think it'll have no impact on him whatsoever. I think he might look at him and go, "Cool, he's good," especially for a bloke who's 40. And then he'll come back and they'll say, Ian Matson will say to him, "How was Ibrahimovic?" And he'll go, "Oh, he's good. He's big for a start, big lad, good touch."
McFadden will be like, "Who's Ibrahimovic?"
Oh, one of these foreign lads, is he? Yeah. Okay, right. I think we probably are some semblance of done here. So, do we have any final pressing thoughts before we let everyone go and enjoy their lives? That sounds like a resounding no. So I'm going to say thank you very much to Laurie.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me back.
Thank you for joining us, Imogen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dom.
Cheers.
And thank you all for listening. Bye.